So I'm going to do kind of a quick hit here on Blood and Roses. This is Battles in the Wars of the Roses in England. It's part of the Men of Iron series designed by Richard H. Berg. You can see there is volume 3. First volume in the series was Men of Iron. Second volume was Infidel. This is the third. He's got a fourth volume coming out called Arquebus, which deals with the Italian, various Italian city-state wars in like the 15 or 1600s or something. So a little different era than these, but kind of curious because I always enjoy games that cover eras that don't get a whole lot of representation in the wargaming community. So there have been quite a few games, though, on Battles of the Wars of the Roses, but maybe not all the ones that Blood and Roses in particular covers. As you can see here, this covers 1st St. Albans, Bloor Heath, 2nd St. Albans, Towton, Barnet, Tewkesbury, and Bosworth. There's been a number of simulations of Bosworth over the years. Not as many, perhaps, on the rest of these. The one that I am particularly playing today is, as you can see here without the glare, Towton. This was fought in Yorkshire, 29 March 1461. Considered to be the largest and bloodiest battle ever fought on English soil. As you can see here, it is, and I'm already well into it here. This was fought during a blizzard, so a late season blizzard, because you don't usually get blizzards in late March. But that was the case here. There was a heavy snowfall, high winds, and the winds played a big part in how the early stages of the battle turned out. The Lancastrian side, shown here in the red as the red counters, their longbowmen were facing into this wind, and so their arrows would not go as far as their Yorkist counterparts, the white counters on the other side. So their range, the game has a rule for that. The range for your Lancastrian longbowmen, who, I don't really have to zoom in, but these are the only longbowmen left on the Lancastrian side. They started with, I believe, 9 counters, and now they have 3. So I can tell you how this kind of went for them. Their range was limited to 4 hexes. Usually a longbowman can shoot 6 hexes. So their range is limited to 4. The Yorkist longbowmen, which you can see here, the pink striped counters, their range was actually extended to 7. So they could shoot at the vanguard of the Lancastrian forces, but the Lancastrians could not reach them. I believe they started 5 hexes away, so I had to move the Lancastrian longbowmen up. I opted to move them way up so that they could get a bonus. Not adjacent. If you move adjacent, you get reaction fire. You don't want that. So they moved up close enough that they could get the +1 bonus for being 2 hexes away. The problem is that they got raked in return, and also these guys down here, all of these yellow striped Yorkist guys with the DM there, those are dismounted footmen or men-at-arms. So they're a little tougher than your average infantry, which you can see here. There's some infantry, Lancastrian infantry mixed in. Those are kind of some your more generic troops. The DM guys here, the men-at-arms, are your more elite troops. They moved up and quickly dispatched a number of the Lancastrian longbowmen. And then, of course, the gold-striped guys here, these are Somerset's battle, and Somerset is all the way down at the other end here. You can see him there. His battle immediately moved up to engage Lancastrian line, and that's what you see now, is this big scrum going on all up and down the line. I tried to kind of, when I did my setup, I kind of tried to place the men-at-arms on the flanks in the hopes of trying to make something happen on one flank or the other. One of the advantages the Lancastrians have, as you can see this red border down here next to the Castle Hill Wood, that's where the Lancastrians historically had hidden some troops to ambush the left flank of the Yorkist line. In the initial battle, and you can't really tell here, well, I guess you can just by looking at sheer number of counters, the Lancastrians outnumber the Yorkists a big part of the Yorkists' ability to win this is getting their reserves there onto the field, which have not yet arrived. So the Lancastrians outnumbered the Yorkists and kind of pushed them this direction towards this Castle Hill Wood, and then this cavalry unit, which I have since, he's already done his ambush, he jumps out anywhere along this red border here through the wood and has double movement to run into the Yorkist line, and then whoever he's adjacent to, if they're disordered, they're retired. If they're not disordered, they become disordered. So I kind of threw him into the midst of a bunch of the yellow striped guys here, and I forget who. I think that's Warwick. Where is he? There he is. Yep. So that's Warwick's battle, the yellow striped guys. He kind of threw himself in the midst of a bunch of those guys, and so ended up retiring a couple of the Yorkist troops. So the Yorkists are a little bit disjointed right now. They've had some success down here of inflicting some disorders. Unfortunately, as you can see here, all their infantry there along that line is badly disordered, so they are probably going to get eliminated and or driven back at some point in the next few activations. Back here I have the reserves. This is King Edward IV and his cavalry and mounted men-at-arms. They may need to do kind of a charge here to hold back the Lancastrian left, assuming that all these disordered Yorkist units here end up either retiring or being eliminated. So looking a little shaky on the Yorkist right. On the Yorkist left, a little bit better, but very disordered. But they've got a good follow up here with Wenlock or whoever this is here, the blue striped guys. Yeah, Wenlock or John Wenlock. And then presumably Norfolk here will show up with his guys and help save the day. Otherwise, it might get a little dicey for the Yorkists because Somerset's battle is taking some hits, but Exeter here, I believe it's Exeter. Yep, his guys are all fresh and waiting to go. So we'll see how it goes. But when you look at the whole map here, there's not really a lot of room to maneuver on this. So you can have it kind of depends on where you place, according to the setup, where you place your strongest units. And with the setup, you are kind of limited. If we look at the setup here in the battle book, over here so my shadow's not in the way. You've got a certain number of guys that you're putting in, if I can avoid the glare here, in each of these kind of set zones, and they will take up, there's enough counters there to take up basically every hex, but what it does do is allow you to decide where you're going to put your dismounted men-at-arms up alongside your infantry. So like I said, I split my men-at-arms kind of between the two flanks. Lancastrians set up first, so the Yorkists are kind of forced to respond, so they put their men-at-arms on the flanks, so they're kind of pushing at each other with those men-at-arms, trying to get advantages against infantry where they can, because there's a +1, -1 difference between infantry and men-at-arms. And then the units set up in the middle are all your longbowmen that are set up as the vanguard, and they will just kind of shoot the crap out of each other and anybody who approaches them, and try and last as long as they can. As you can see here, the pink striped guys, that was Falkenberg's battle. He was killed in the resultant shock combat as the Lancastrian line moved up. So they're already on a replacement leader for him. So, like I said, started out a little bit dicey for the Yorkists. If they can get Norfolk on, though, they should be in good shape. I kind of got interested in this particular battle because I have a subscription to this little publication here, Medieval Warfare, and this particular issue, and this was from, I think it's over a year ago now, maybe some time in 2015, early 2015. This issue in particular dealt with the Yorkist Triumph, Wars of the Roses. You can see on there the bloody Battle of Towton. A number of good articles in here. It's got... oops, the page is almost tipped over my martini there. Got some interesting articles. Lord Falkenberg here, for example, the guy that just died in the battle. A little good article on him. Some article on Calais, Battle of Northampton, which is not in Blood and Roses, so maybe not an important enough battle to make the cut there. Here it talks about Edward IV, who's also here in this battle. He was kind of the counter king to Henry VI. Here you got Bloody Sunday. So this is the article on the Battle of Towton, which is good background reading. There's some background for the battle in the battle book for the game. This here in this publication, obviously, a bit more in-depth. Nice artwork there showing you the longbowmen firing during the blizzard. A good map of the battle showing, you know, much like you see here, it's just a giant line of guys running at each other. There is some strategy to how they place themselves in the surrounding terrain. And so you've got marshes on one side, streams or rivers on the other side, which do show up on the map. As you can see, there's the little stream there, and on the other end you can see marshes. So there was some care taken to terrain. The battle was fought on this big plateau and kind of shifted around a little bit, as you can see here. There's where the Castle Hill Wood, that's where the cavalry ambush comes from. But ultimately it didn't end up making much of a difference as Norfolk showed up and reinforced, and it was about that time that the Lancastrian army broke and routed off the field. So we'll see if Norfolk shows up. We may see a similar result. And again, you know, good article here. Lots of detail, some sources. I'll list some books if you're interested in reading more about the battle. And I don't remember which books they listed here. I haven't read actually any of them. I've got a book on the Battle of Bosworth, but nothing on any other individual Wars of the Roses battles. Focus going crazy there. Looks like the most recent one on there is from 2012, Fatal Colors, Towton, England's most brutal battle. So, anyway, just a little look at Towton for Blood and Roses. I might throw up another video once I'm done. I don't really want to run through the whole, you know, do a sort of play-by-play of the battle. It's very straightforward. You're just going to be doing lots and lots of shock combat between these two sides, and most of them, once you get your dismounted men-at-arms out of the way, you know, except for whatever havoc Edward IV's cav back here can wreak with charges and whatnot, you're otherwise just going to be doing either straight up infantry against infantry or dismounted men-at-arms versus dismounted men-at-arms rolls, or the occasional +1, you know, men-at-arms versus infantry, +1, -1 difference, men-at-arms versus infantry rolls. So there's not going to be a lot of variation. It's just going to be literally line up, beat the crap out of each other, see who gets luckier with the dice. I will be curious to see if, you know, as these flanks kind of shift around, if that will have any great effect. The terrain unlikely to be much of a factor here, you know, unless somebody ends up against the stream over here, or in the woods or whatever. But otherwise, it should be pretty straightforward. But we'll see. Maybe put up another video with a recap once it's done.